Moments with Mark, Mark chapter 9, verse 30. Mark chapter 9, verse 30. Leaving that region, they traveled through Galilee. Jesus didn't want anyone to know he was there, for he wanted to spend more time with his disciples and teach them. I think this is a wonderful picture of how Jesus is mentoring and investing in his followers, his disciples, the apostles. And it tells us that now Jesus is on his journey toward the cross. He has been teaching, he has been preaching, he has been healing, he's been casting out demons. But now his main focus is the cross, for which will be his destiny, and it will be our pardon. The Son of Man, he says, is going to be betrayed into the hands of his enemies, and he will be killed, but 3 days later he will rise from the dead. This was God's will and God's plan. Sometimes we don't understand God's will, especially when we're in the midst of suffering and pain or loss. We don't always understand what God's trying to teach us. But sometimes we need to walk the walk of God's will, the journey of faith, by just trusting and relying on his guidance and on his wisdom. Sometimes he doesn't tell us every step of the way what's happening, and we have to just trust. Here again, Jesus declares that he will be headed toward Jerusalem, he will be betrayed, he will be killed, and he will rise again. So it's another prediction to his disciples of what's going to happen. They didn't understand what he was saying, however, and they were afraid to ask him what he meant. I was like that in school, wasn't you? When the teacher asked a question, I didn't want to raise my hand if I had the answer, because I'm afraid I would be wrong. And I had a question in class. I didn't want to raise my hand to ask the question because I was afraid of looking stupid or silly or foolish. And so here we have the disciples not really understanding what Jesus is trying to say about this death and resurrection, but they don't want to ask him because they're afraid. I'm sure they're afraid of failure. They failed him several times in this walk of faith that they've been on, this journey of faith, and so they don't want to disappoint him again. But we can come to God with all our questions, with all our whys, and we can ask God. I think of Jesus as like our best friend. We should be able to come to him honestly and openly and talk to him in prayer. Be that kind of person that knows Jesus as Savior, but also as your best friend.